In this video, I'm gonna share with you my deepest vulnerability in this life. A topic that I was avoiding for a long time, but that's actually always part of everything I share with you. Because this is my deepest, darkest shadow that I've been through in my life. And it's connected with everything I share, because this deep part of my life's journey, this deepest vulnerability, made me the most strong version of myself and became my biggest strength and the most important teacher underneath all of the tools, everything that I liberated within myself, all the knowledge I gained, all the wisdom, and even all the parts that I learned as a kid to kind of disappear or to disconnect from Earth, from being here. The parts that became my mechanisms to fly away. These parts I use now to help myself and help my body, and also to support other people in their journey, because they now became my biggest qualities. And it's so funny how easy it kind of can sneak in, that this part gets put away in the shadow and kind of ignored. But it is also a part of my life's journey. It is also a really, really the most important part of the reason how and why I am sitting here, sharing my story, talking to you, being the version of me that I am now, so complete. So I feel it's time to share about this part of my journey, to inspire you to look at things that you learned or words that got a really different meaning, a really dark energy in our society. And for me, sharing about this, I hope I can bring some light and a different way of seeing, a different perspective around some topics that for me it really feels, especially for women, is just one part that is created to keep us women small, weak, and not tapping into our strength, not using our own voice. And I feel now I'm speaking, I also can feel that, there is a lot of different emotions underneath. I can feel anger, I can feel deep sadness. And I can also feel gratitude, because all of this brought me here, being able to serve you even better, because it made me go so deep within myself. So the part I want to talk about is how I one day got the label of borderline. And I can feel when I hear or use the word borderline that there is so much heavy feeling around it. I still hear it so many times around me. And always when people are talking about this, it's connected with a lot of pain, anger, frustration. Because a lot of times I hear people talking about it that got triggered in their own shadow parts by the people who got the label borderline. That's how I usually see it. Like people who work in connection with a person with borderline and kind of feel anger and resentment and, have a resistance, created a resistance around this. And like really put this statement, right? Like, oh yes, I once was in a relationship with someone with borderline. Oh my God. How could you ever? Those people are not able to have relationships. But are you, who says this, truly, truly looking at yourself? Why are you triggered by this? What is your connection and your participation in this story? Because to start with, I grew up in a family situation that was feeling emotionally really unstable and unsafe. And I was alone in my life. And I love my parents a lot. But in that moment, they were not able to give the stability and the safety that a child needs. And they were doing their best. And there was a lot of darkness that we were going through with our family situation that was not talked about. And me, as a sensitive being who came to Earth with a deeper mission to feel it all and to bring light on all of these parts, it's a really deep task you get, when you come into this life as a little baby, as a little child, to have the task to press all the buttons in your parents' unconsciousness, all the buttons that are in their shadow. And just by who I was pressing those buttons all the time. And in that moment, they didn't know how to deal with that. So what happened was that naturally, automatically, they start fighting against that a lot of times. And pressing this away and kind of turning it back to me. So in my life, I'm got really used to that since I was already a baby, a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, that my parents were always going with me to psychologists, searching for help to kind of find out what was wrong with me and why I was behaving in the way I was in that moment, because they were not able to handle it, because I was pressing all of these buttons that were parts of their unconscious shadows. So of course for them it was super intense, and of course in that moment they were not able to deal with that and to look at that within themselves. So, and it was also really normal in that time growing up, to look at the things outside of yourself instead of reflecting this back. And at one point my mom was doing that. But in the beginning, what I remember from growing up was that there was always a lot of attention around why is Malou so hard to deal with? Why is she struggling so much with all the emotions? What is wrong with her? And they had the good intentions, but for me, as growing up, this is how I received it. Because I wasn't able to participate in the world how we created it with my sensitivity, because there was literally no room for that. And about everything I feel from the world around me, everything that's suppressed back into the darkest corners, I was feeling that from my parents, from my family, at school, from the teachers. Everywhere I was going, I was tapping into this. And as a little girl, I didn't know how to deal with that. So it was so overwhelming, and I didn't know how to process all of the information I was getting. So what I did, I taught myself, and it became a mechanism that became really natural for me, was to go outside of my body, escape the reality. I was doing that in the nights. Like, the nights were always really hard for me, because in the nights, you're naturally, your body starts processing emotions, starts processing everything you went through in the day. And for me, there was so much intensity that wasn't processed by the people around me. So I all received this within myself. And I wasn't able to process this either. So the nights were always quite intense for me. And I really got used to naturally go outside of my body. So I tried to stay awake as long as possible. I didn't want to go to bed. I was scared. I didn't want to go to sleep, because then the darkness came and I kind of start leaving my body. And in a way, my soul liked it, but my little girl, my human little girl, was also scared of that. So I was astral traveling naturally every night. And I never knew what it was. I thought it was normal. I never learned about that until I was in my awakening journey after my 25th year. I will share more about that in a different video. So I start escaping in many ways. I start going outside of my body naturally every night. I start using food as an escapism. I was also having a lot of troubles of, really knowing how to take care of my body and all of the sensations and everything my body needs. Like, I didn't drink, I didn't go to the toilet, I was always holding everything inside. And because I learned to hold everything inside, because there was emotionally no space for me in our family situation and in the world around me, because when I was expressing my emotions, it was not normal. Like, it was a lot of times too intense for the people around me, because I was expressing the emotions that they suppressed within themselves. So every time that I was just naturally expressing what I was feeling, of course this would trigger a lot in the people around me, because they suppressed that within themselves. So, and from these triggers that they were not able to handle, they start pushing me back and trying to stop me and trying to close me down. And this was from, since I was a baby, growing up as a little child, learning that there is something wrong with me because I'm every time having to go to doctors and everyone is always talking about, Malu needs help. So I really created this deep, deep, deep belief inside of me that I was not good the way I was, and it was not good to express what I was literally feeling, that this was wrong. And I was feeling so much. So I start all storing within myself and holding within myself. And because of all of this, I started attracting a lot of negative things in my life as well. Because I created this deep, deep, deep sense of hate towards myself. Because, if you constantly hear that everything you do is too much, it's too intense, it's not good, and if you every time hear that, the next doctor, the next psychologist, the next video training, because we have to find out what's wrong with Malu, you naturally create this really deep sense of, I'm wrong, I'm not good. And I became so disconnected from myself. And in my teenage years, this was exploding even more. I was like so in a dark place, so disconnected, didn't know who I was at all anymore. Then I also got the pill, so my hormones became completely out of balance. I started eating in a really unhealthy way because food became an addiction for me to escape in. I started drinking a lot of alcohol, using a lot of drugs. No. There was literally a horse kind of trying to take my stuff. Hola. And attracting a lot of men because I didn't know how to love myself, and I was feeling so much hate towards myself. And my parents, they were so busy with themselves, they didn't have room to truly emotionally be available for me and my needs. So what I learned was, if I give my body as a woman, I can, get attention and get the love that this part inside of me was just longing for. And I didn't know how to give this to myself because no one ever taught me. So I was attracting all of these men, that were in these dark parts within themselves because they were also searching something inside of me. So I was attracting really unhealthy men who really were using me, to fulfill something within themselves too. A lot of times physical needs. And this is also a family pattern, from my mom's side of the family. And I feel I'm experiencing all of these things because I am breaking this family line pattern, and this is one of my tasks in this life. But also in my teenage years, because I was like really losing myself so much in many different ways, I started becoming really depressive and, using alcohol, using drugs. It gives you these highs and this numbness, but it creates this deeper gap with the connection within you. And I had the one after the other relationship, and all the relationships were kind of really problematic. My leg is sleeping. During my journey of seeing a lot of psychologists and, going into this, of course, when you go into that, you get a label because this is what they do. This is the way they work. So, of course, if you go into the medical health system and you're kind of asking for help, you will get labels because they don't know any other way. This is the way how they, how they do it. So I think when I was 16 or 17, and I was going with my problems, talking with a psychologist, and start sharing about the traumas, and they were like traumatic experiences. And for the first time, opening my voice, for the first time, someone was listening to me. That was good. I needed that in that moment because I was really alone in my journey. There was no one I felt safe to talk to in that moment. And in this moment, my relationship with my parents is really good. Like, we did a lot of work, they did a lot of work, so it changed. But in that moment when I was a child and a teenager, I was alone. I was really alone. And I was trying to figure out all of this shit on my own, right? And like attracting these unhealthy people, all these men that were like wanting something from me, and creating the one after the other traumatizing experience, and coming in these dark scenes with lots of drug abuse, lots of people who are really, getting addicted, and just dark. So when I was 16 or 17, I had my first tests that I got my label. You have borderline. And then you get this whole bookwork of why and how and what parts of you are resonating with the borderline. And you start reading all of this, and of course you recognize yourself in that, And it's really like, it's this disease. And they know you get this, when you have traumatizing experience. You don't learn how to deal with that. You don't learn how to express this. And it kind of stacks on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other, until it's so much that, you cannot process it anymore. And then this creates this kind of complete gap between who you really are. Sorry, I'm really distracted because I'm surrounded with horses here. A really painful thing that when I look back at it now, it's that you get all of this information and you recognize yourself in it, and it's really brought as this disease that you will never be able to heal from. Like, they literally say, if you have borderline, this is who you are. And you have to find a way in your life to deal with that. And if people saying this to you over and over and over again, they're so huge. Oh, thank you. I mean, okay, wait, I have to stop this video. No need to be perfect. Just be you in every moment. To share your heart, to share your true voice. You are you in the most beautiful way. That's why I'm here, sharing my voice with you, stepping into the light to invite you to do the same. In every moment of the day, you are needed with your light. I'm singing this for myself. So grateful.